Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I don't know about you, but I can tell you from my perspective, there are times where I don't get a good night's sleep. I think last night was one of those times. I'm recording this. This is December 30th. It's Friday. It's the last business day of the month, the last business day of the year. Have a ton of work to do. Have to close the books for the year, close the books for the quarter. Just a lot of things. Get ready for 2023. There's just a lot of things swirling through my head. So I don't necessarily get a good night's sleep. I mean, I have the best of intentions, get to bed at a decent hour, fall asleep, and then just something clicks in me, and it might be 1 a.m. and I'm up. Not up, but I'm awake and things are ruminating in my mind, and I'm just not getting a good night's sleep. You fall back asleep, and then it's 2:30, and then 3:30. And I'm up early anyways. I'm up at the office early. I'm out of bed at 4:45 to get a workout in, and I can just tell I haven't had a good night's sleep. And there's a lot of detriments to not getting a good night's sleep. I find that when I don't get a good night's sleep, I don't eat as well. I just like my willpower is down. I'm gonna grab a cookie, or I'll do this, or I just don't do as well. I really have to focus more on eating well. The other thing I find is that my thinking is impaired. I feel like, ever have your computer, you're working on your computer, and you like an Excel spreadsheet, and you type a number in, you hit return, and it's kind of taking the time to churn away, or you go to a website, and it just takes time to churn away. That's how my thinking feels, right? It's something so simple that, and a lot of times I'll just push away from it. So I'll come back another time when I'm fresh. And but that's how I feel. But the other thing that lack of sleep impairs are our social skills. And I ran across a study that talked about this. And this really kind of ties into the Networking RX podcast, right? A podcast about relationships, and social skills totally tie into our relationships. And lack of sleep impairs our ability, our social abilities. And one of the things that they have found is that insufficient sleep removes our ability to read people. And that's something that humans are really good at. Maybe all animals are good at it, but humans are good at reading people, reading somebody's facial expressions. And obviously somebody who's walking in the room and are beaming from ear to ear, that's a no-brainer. Or somebody who's coming in and got a scowl on their face and just angry, fist clenched, that's a no-brainer. But it's all that stuff in between, that the subtle differences between people that we have to be able to read. And it's something that has kept us, it's kept us alive through the eons. Just being able to, we're just more successful from a survival standpoint, and a prosperity standpoint, when we had that ability to be able to read other people, read their body language. And what they're finding is that when people are sleep deprived, that their heart rates don't respond normally to both friendly and threatening faces. They hook people up and they show them different faces, and if you look at the study, there's a litany of faces, from and there are just subtle differences, right? Just subtle differences in how people look. And they're, again, on the one hand, there's the person who's just beaming ear to ear, just won the lottery. And then there's the other person that's just, had their house taken from them. But then there's all those little subtle things in between, and when we don't have a good night's sleep, we don't do a good job of reading those things. I find also that I'm more irritable with less sleep. Maybe not so much early in the day, um, but I just think it's easier to kind of hit those triggers. And it's kind of related but unrelated. But just the ability to be able to walk into a room and understand what somebody is saying with their facial and body expressions, that is important to us. What you have to understand about the human species, if you will, is that we are prone to look for threats, um, and that's helped keep us alive. Is being able to spot threats. Certainly, being able to spot opportunities is important, but threats, missing out on an opportunity, is far less detrimental than missing a threat. And so you think about it. It's like, okay, I walked past the berry bush and didn't get the berries. Is not necessarily a game changer. Um, Not seeing the saber-toothed tiger is a game changer. And so we're much more in tune to looking for threats, and what the sleep deprivation does is it causes us to overestimate threats. We see threats where they might not be. So we might come into a situation and somebody might, you know, we look at it as a threat where that's not the situation at all. And if we look at it as a threat, and I'm not saying a life-threatening threat, but something, which we're not reading somebody correctly. We're not going to respond to them correctly. And if we're responding to them in a terse manner when they don't really warrant that, but that's something we're reading because we're overestimating the threats, it's going to hurt us. And so well, obviously it's important to get a good night's sleep, and this is not a program about sleep. I mean, I'm just saying sleep is important, and just another reason why it's important is because we're trying to figure out, as we navigate the world, whether we're on Zoom or in-person meetings or working with somebody at the office, that we're trying to figure out these cues. And this particular study really dealt with, imagery, facial expressions, but I would imagine it applies to just even conversations with people on the phone, or just how we read emails. I had an email come at me the other day, and it was, I estimated it to be more threatening than it was. It's been a long week. It's been a long holiday, trying to get ready for the new year. I've kind of gone through it all, a lot going on in my mind. It's been a good year, but there's always a lot of, there's with great opportunity comes great responsibility, and they're just things we're trying to put into place and trying to get them all done by the beginning of the year. While you're, spending time with family and friends and all that stuff. And I just haven't been sleeping well, and this email just hit me poorly. Fortunately, I didn't get, my amygdala didn't get hijacked, and I just quickly responded, said, listen, I'll respond to you tomorrow, and then looked at it again with fresh eyes in the morning. I got some rest. But it wasn't a great night's sleep, right? It wasn't Saturday morning, I'm ready to go. I've, got 10 great hours of sleep, but I was just in a better position to respond and say, you know what, here, let me explain the situation, and just be nice about it and start out with, hey, thanks for your note. But that's what a lack of sleep will do. And what they found in this study is that, people who were sleep deprived, they tended to think that both neutral faces and even people who had normally otherwise friendly faces were threatening. And I'll quote from the author here of the study, recognizing the emotional expressions of someone else's changes everything about whether or not you decide to interact with them. and return whether or not they decide to interact with you. So you walk into a situation where somebody's got a neutral face, or maybe it's a face that's somewhat friendly. I mean, maybe not over the top friendly, but somewhat friendly. They're inviting, and you're kind of standoffish because you sense there's a threat. You potentially miss an opportunity. And who knows what that opportunity could be? I mean, it could be, it could be great. We can take that in all sorts of directions. So just kind of a plug for getting a good night's sleep, taking a nap. And again, this is not a program about sleep, but getting a nap in, 20 minutes is there's lots of research out there on just quick little cat naps. Is important, because when you're better at when you've had that sleep, the better you're going to be at spotting facial expressions, and that's what the study was about. But I have no doubt that it extends into all things in reading people, talking on the phone where you can't even see somebody, but just understanding, okay, the tone they're coming at you with, or reading an email. And it's just, our brains are powerful things, and they do a lot for us, and we need to give them that kind of care, that going and getting some sleep so they can function properly, so we can read the world properly and show up in the world having the best possible relationships that we can have.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.